I'm Jeff Crawford, Nashville Shaman, and today I'd like to talk to you about numerology. So the way that numerology is indicative of various types of personalities is the correlation between the numbers themselves and their themes as they relate to archetypes. So for example, if somebody has 5 as a lifetime number, well, I know several things about that person right away because I'm correlating it with an archetype. The archetype would be one of a teacher, as a gatekeeper, one that presents challenges or puzzles for you to solve. And then, if you solve it, it lets you to the next level, or if you don't, turns you away. And so generally when I see somebody coming up as a lifetime number of 5, I know they're very analytical. I know they're very critical. I know that there's somebody that is always challenging the absolutes and always going to find the exceptions, not because they're trying to be difficult, but because that's how they find their truth. That's how they find the facts. These are the people that are wrestling with religion. They're wrestling with politics. People see them as pessimistic oftentimes, and they're not pessimistic. They are discerning truth by pointing out what truth isn't, which is something we all do, and we don't even realize it. And then we'll criticize these people with these 5 themes as their lifetime, saying they're pessimistic. But when you're having a debate, the first thing you want to do is point out all the exceptions to where that person's wrong. And what you're doing is you have this subconscious presumption that if I can point out to you that something's wrong, then I have proven to you that that's not true, because it needs to be true in every circumstance. And clearly it's not if I can show you that it's not. So that is how a 5 personality is always on that page. They're always looking for the exceptions. They're finding truth by realizing what it isn't, and then they see what's left that is consistent. So they're very analytical. They're somebody who's going to be an excellent teacher or a guide or instructor, mentor even, because they learn from experience. These are people who oftentimes will learn things the hard way because they're testing everything. And because they do all that testing, then as they mature, they become incredible teachers who are teaching from wisdom that comes from experience. And so they become wonderful guides. They become people who can partner with you as you're unraveling the keys of the challenges that you're wrestling with in life. They can help you see the bigger picture. They can help encourage you to want to go further, even as they're challenging you and bringing some sense of meaning to it. So this is somebody who is going to challenge a lot of things. They're going to see if somebody is kind of making things up as they go along, just really showing a lot of BS. This is somebody who's going to cut right through that. They're going to recognize it in a heartbeat because they have wrestled with truth enough to see when not truth is showing up. Like I said, excellent teachers, excellent critical thinkers, researchers, those types of things. So I'm using the number in correlation with an archetype to be able to see what that personality is. Probably another good one is the number 6. The number 6 is somebody who needs to be all in or not in at all. They are somebody who they spend their lifetime trying to bring their inner self and their outer self in union. Now, we're all trying to do that, or we should be to some extent. But for this person, it's vital. It's not that they can't make compromises or concessions in life. They can, but it never works out well when they do. It's like a self-betrayal of sorts. And so for somebody who's got a 6 for a lifetime number, my encouragement to them is not to put themselves in those situations. So they don't have to be limiting themselves and compartmentalizing, because it never works out well. They also tend to be very loyal people. If you're looking for a lover that you can know is 100% loyal to you and in love with you, well, you're, as 6s are going to be it every time. They're going to be the romantics, and they're going to be romantic from a deep place. And so it can also be a little overwhelming, because they don't need a lot of people in their lives. They're very comfortable with a small circle, of very close people in their lives, so that they are all in with the people that they're in with. They're people that tend to want to bring balance to situations. They're good at more interpersonal relationships. They're good at sensing what's under the surface, when they're interacting with people. They also can be the ones that as soon as you hurt them, they retreat, they vanish, they're gone. They're not going to wait to be hurt again. And so that can be some of the frustration of working with somebody that has a 6th theme, is that they tend to be all or nothing, and that's exactly as they're intended to be. Could you consider as a science, are the numbers absolute? Not really, because there's layers. I'm not just looking at a lifetime theme. I'm looking at a lifetime theme within a personality type, within a rolling 12 months theme, within a calendar year theme, within a global theme, and then I'm looking at the numbers that represent, the deeper parts of their personality we associate with their soul desires, as well as the archetypes that come with that. So there's layers, there's complexities. Nobody is just 1D, 2D, or 3D. We're very complex. And so I have to look at the layers of numbers. So, 2 people who are 6s may be vastly different, because when you start peeling back the layers and the complexities of that personality, it doesn't make them any less of a 6, but it shows that 6 operating in different ways. It shows those traits expressing themselves in a completely different context. Much like astrology, you get 2 Cancerians or 2 Aquarians, and yet they can be vastly different in their personalities. We like to lump them together. Oh, I'm that too. Oh, we're so much alike, and yet so often we're not alike at all, even though we have the same sign, because there are layers to these things. And so you can't just put people in boxes. You have to see their unique layers, and then you can see how those themes are expressing themselves within the layers. So for an example of how I might do a reading of a name, I've used the example of Warren, and I've got his date of birth here. I won't announce that. But I'm looking at, I've added together, the numbers of his date of birth, and they come to 2011. So now I'm looking at the numbers within 2011. I know, one, this is a person who is analyzing, all their choices. If you ask this person if they want to do something, this is a person who you're not going to get a direct answer from, because he's going to take a minute and he's going to think about what that affects. If I do this, then what else can I do or not do? Or what's that going to cost me? Or what's it going to take away from? He's weighing it out. It's never just an easy choice, or rarely ever, because he's considering, everything is like a crossroads. At the same time, I'm looking at 20, 2 and 0. And so I'm thinking, well, this is somebody who's always looking at crossroads, but they're also looking at potentialities. And so they tend to be somebody who wants things to matter. What fulfills them are more eternal things, things that have a purpose, a significance. Somebody like this is going to get frustrated by just doing mindless, meaningless, kinds of activities. And then I see the 11, and of course I'm thinking of an archetype here of justice, also of strength, and those are familiar with the tarot will understand why I'm raising both of those. And so I know this is somebody who's weighing things out, who is looking within as well as without, who's looking at facts, who's looking for truth. Those are the things that drive and motivate this kind of individual. And so all those things come together and create this overall theme of a 4. And so while this person may seem, like they're indecisive at times, like they're waffling it a bit, the whole driver behind it, the big major theme is that they value stability, structure, safety, security, family, faith. And so they're not going to take those decisions lightly, and things don't go well for them unless those things are in place. If those things aren't in place, then they're just kind of, unbalanced. In a relationship, whoever is in love with somebody like this would need to understand that about them. So if the bills aren't paid, if the house isn't clean, if things aren't organized, then it's like you haven't really loved this person who's a 4, because you have to understand these are like the basic needs in their hierarchy for them to be the best that they can be. They're also somebody who can come into a situation and oftentimes bring order to chaos. So when people are thinking, oh, it's just crazy, we don't know which way to go, when somebody like this comes in on a situation like that, they tend to be the person who can somehow see a unique approach. They find a way to bring some order to it so that it's manageable. I'm also looking at the rolling 12 months. And this particular person was born in March, so I'm looking for March to March, and the year of 2023 in this example. And so I can see the numbers come out to 2037. What you already talked about what 20 is. But 3, this is a number of creation. This is a number of bringing shadow and light together to bring some form of articulation of what's being gestated, of what's being conceived, of what's being produced. And so this person is in a creative mode in their life for the 6-month period. And also 7. 7 is a number of rising above, of making the practical also more spiritual, more elevated. It's also somebody who's thinking outside the box, somebody who's able to get a higher view, and that allows them to make a way when there doesn't seem to be a way. They can bust through barriers. They can break through things that seem to be impossible to manage. They're also somebody who's always thinking. They probably change their mind a lot, not because they're fickle, but because they're always learning. And so they're very comfortable with the flow of where their thoughts are going, and the conclusions are breathing and growing as their information is. And so all that comes together and creates a 12. Well, a 12 is a number of, it's an active number, but it is a number of hurry up and wait. It's a number where the action is happening in their heart, in their intuition, in their mind. They're not initiating things, they're conceiving things and perceiving things differently. They're making space and time for the epiphanies, for the aha moments to break through and shed some light on what they want to do when things start moving. So it's a more contemplative time in this person's life as they're considering what they're creating and all this movement. And then, of course, when I look and see them in 2024, again, starting in June with the rolling 12 months, that's where things really start to move. And it shows that this person's going to have a lot of passion, a lot of fire in them. Diplomacy is going to be a challenge, more so than normal. And yet they're going to have a lot of force with which to strategically channel that energy to affect the changes that they want to affect in powerful ways. In the year of 2023, looking at the calendar year, it shows up as a 7 for them. So again, it's my guidance to them would be, hey, live life as an allegory, look at the bigger picture and work backward so that you're not getting distracted by all the minutia in your life. By looking at the bigger picture as an allegory, you can discern the priorities. You can find a compass and then work backward so that you know where to spend your energy and you're not wasting it on all the wrong stuff that just isn't worth the time or the energy. Coming into the year 2024, because we're right on the cusp here, this is a time where the person has the power to do some really major creative work with their energy, to really pursue those potentialities they want. But they need to do it strategically. They need to play it like a chess game. They need to know when it's okay to be silent, when grace is more powerful, when it's okay to accept some unfair circumstances or losses in order to achieve the bigger goal, the bigger win, that not to be a victim, but to be like a chess player, to be strategic. And to use that power to manage their passions, to manage the rush of emotion and pressure of speech that threatens to sabotage everything, so that when they do speak, they speak factually and powerfully and meaningfully. Then I'm looking at this person's name, and the name breaks down to 5 and 1 are the 2 soul numbers that are showing up for this individual. Well, I've shared a lot of about 5 already. This is somebody who's analytical. He's always thinking. He's always testing. He's always finding exceptions. No matter how good the teacher, he's going to find something of an exception in whatever is being shared. He is formulating his own truth by figuring out what truth isn't, and then figuring out how that plays out in his practical life. Now, as a result, this is somebody who, when he has found truth, is an excellent teacher of the truth that he has found. So he's an excellent mentor, encourager, enabler, empowerer, a really good person to just walk with somebody who also is willing to do that kind of struggling. So at a soul level, what people don't readily see, but what is there when you get to know this person more intimately, is that he's a dreamer. He is a visionary. He is somebody who can conceive of possibilities. And even though he may not know exactly how those possibilities are going to come about, all he has to do is align himself with those desires and allow those things to reveal themselves. It's not up to him to figure out the project plan. It's up to him to align with those desires, and in so doing, those things become manifested, and they reveal their own path, their own way of manifestation by his just holding on to those conceptions, those possibilities. This is somebody who's deep. He feels deeply. Depression would be something that this person could be prone to. He may go through several dark nights of the souls where he's just really wrestling with himself, being broken down to be reborn. And each time it's more powerful, but it can be very dark at the same time. And yet that is his process. That's how it should be. And it's what allows him to pursue those paths that no one else would understand. Those things that, he has to do. He can't not do them, or he'll always wonder what if, and so this is somebody who's going to find himself in positions where he's going to have to plug his ears and close his eyes and grit his teeth and not care about what everybody else and influences around him are saying, but just put one foot in front of the other and trust that divine, intuitive pull in whatever direction he's being guided. This is somebody who's motivated by emotional, relational, and spiritual fulfillment. That's his hierarchy of needs. That's the most basic of them. He wants to get it right. It needs to be well in his soul, or it's not well in anything else. And so ultimately, while he may be studying, while he may be analyzing and testing truth, it's not to be the smartest guy. It's to be the most fulfilled spiritually, emotionally, and relationally. And then finally, this is somebody who is sensitive. He may be awkward in relationships because it's fresh, it's new. Everybody is a new complexity to figure out, and yet this is somebody who's willing to do that, to put themselves out there. And so it's somebody who can be hurt easily, or can hurt easily, and yet it's somebody that if you will give them the opportunity to be in a relationship with, it can be very fun, it can be very fulfilling, it can be very deep, it can be, you can learn a lot from this person, and this person is always ready to learn a lot from you. This is not a shallow type of person. So this would be somebody who is deep and yet has a playfulness, a lightheartedness with it at the same time as they're exploring where those relationships can go. So by looking at the complexities and the numbers, I'm able to see the layers and be more specific in the personality type. Somebody else with a lifetime number of 4 may look very different because of the way the 4 comes about, and then the context that then results as the other layers for that 4 to be expressed. So if you have an interest in knowing more about numerology or working with me, perhaps having a reading with your own numerology, I'd love to work with you. You can visit my website at www.nashvilleshaman.com.